Hi, I'm Summer.
And I'm Mike.
And we got married.
With children.
We're going on 2 years of marriage.
But we've been together for 10.
He brought 2.
She brought 2.
Together, that's 4 kids.
That's way too many kids.
And we want to share what works for us.
And what doesn't.
For step-parents, co-parents, marriage, being your best self, managing work, family, friends, health. We're going to talk about
everything.
You ready, babe?
Always.
Okay, here we are. I am talking to one of my very, very best friends, Kelsey Holohan, soon to be Kelsey Cameron, which
Yay!
I'm so excited about. We were talking, I guess, a couple of weeks ago about the whole blended family thing, how Mike and I were doing this podcast, and we had this whole conversation about, well, what about the situation that you're in, which is you have 3 children, but your fiance doesn't have any children. That's a common dynamic where, sometimes it's men that have children, the woman doesn't. And nothing that I had ever experienced, but it's different. You know what I mean? There's challenges that come with all of that. And I'm just really excited to get your perspective and some of, what are the great things? What are the challenges? I think a lot of people in that situation can relate to.
Absolutely. I am excited to talk about all of that.
Well, let's start with a little bit about who you are, your situation, what you do, and how long you guys have been together, when you're getting married, all the good stuff.
Okay, yes. As Summer mentioned, I'm Kelsey, and I am a teacher. I've been in education for 21 years, which I absolutely love. And I am a mom of 3 kids. I have a 6th grader, my oldest son, James, a 4th grader, my daughter, Ryan, and a 2nd grader, my little baby, Callan, who's not a baby anymore. And I got a divorce, I want to say it was 2011. The end of 2011 was actually when we separated and started the process going. It was a really long process, and the kids were really little. Callan was actually 6 months old at the time. So it was definitely a journey and a learning journey. And it brought me to the point where I was living on my own, doing the single mom thing, and met Jeff. It's funny because we both lived in San Diego, but met out of town. We were both on trips in Palm Springs and happened to meet up there and started a relationship. I know we'll touch on this more, but it's been an incredible learning experience. And I think that when people talk about blending families, it's so often about 2 families coming together, that both sides have kids. And I think that, nobody knows, unless you're in those shoes, what those challenges are, the benefits as well, and the beautiful things about that. And I think sometimes, and I guess I'm saying this because I get the comment all the time when people ask if Jeff has kids, like 99% of the time people respond with like, oh, you're so lucky, or oh, that's so much easier, or oh, that's so much better. And where I can't say if it's easier or better or harder because I don't know what it's like to be, in your shoes at all. But I definitely think it comes with challenges and wonderful, beautiful things that are a little bit unexpected. We've kind of come across some things that I didn't know would be a thing, until they happen. So it's been really, really interesting. So that's where I'm at. We met almost 6 years ago in April. So just in a couple of months. So it'll be, actually in March. Next month, it'll be 6 years together. So Jeff has been in their lives. Like my 12-year-old has had half of his entire life with Jeff as a father figure and half without. And the other 2, the majority of their life has been with Jeff as a father figure. They call him daddy. It's amazing. I feel incredibly blessed that they have him.
Actually, because you said that, I just want to interject with the kids. And I've known that, and I've seen these amazing pictures that Ryan will draw, and, Jeff is another dad to them, which is so great. And it's so beautiful to see all of them together, but they still have their biological dad in the picture. And that's, something that's, I remember one day Ashlyn asking me, and this was years ago, I think it was, I don't know, I just remember when we were coming together, or maybe it was around the time we got engaged. I just remember her asking though, well, what do I call you now? And I was like, well, you can call me whatever you want, and I've always said, you have your mom. I love you so much and all that, but I never want it to be like, you have to call me mom or anything like that. And I know that your kids, that was like their choice that they started to do that. And I wonder, how does that affect their dad, their biological dad? Like, have you seen, does that bother him? Is he cool with it? Like, what's that dynamic?
That's a really good question. And it's a dynamic that has drastically changed over the years. It started with, in the beginning of my relationship with Jeff, it started with my ex-husband being angry. And I don't know if he was angry that there was another man in the picture or exactly, what that, like, to pinpoint what made him angry. But I do know that he refused to meet or really acknowledge Jeff for 3 years. So for the first 3 years, and we were at the point even where Jeff and I were living together. So here's another man that is living, with his children, and he just still could not. There was no, if he knew that Jeff was going to be at a birthday party or a soccer game or an end of the year party, my ex-husband just would not come. To his credit, he came around, and it was honestly 3 years where one day he said to me, "It's been 3 years. I think I should probably meet Jeff." Yeah. And I was like, all right, okay, let's do this. We went to the beach, actually, all of us, and Jeff and Paul, got along, and they do get along, and it's great. And I also, one of the things that I'm so grateful for is that, and, while again, it took years to get there, my ex-husband will say, my kids have 2 daddies. Yeah. He calls himself daddy number 1 and Jeff is daddy number 2. And I do know that my ex-husband is grateful for all of the things that Jeff does for the kids. And he does a lot of things like take us on trips and give them experiences that I know that my ex-husband is not able to do. Mm-hmm. And instead of being really angry about that, he's pretty darn grateful that the kids get that experience, which is great.
That's so awesome. Like, I can only imagine how reassuring and like the confidence and security that instills with the kids, knowing 100%. That like they support each other. Yeah. And
100%.
It's so lucky too. You said it took 3 years, but really when you think about the ages, what a great time, because, you forget a lot of those things when you're younger.
You do. I don't remember anything.
Yeah. What great timing for them to have all of that.
I can absolutely see how much they enjoy having all of us together. We don't hang out, all of us, ex-husband, included, all that often. But when we do, I can just see, like, they love having all their people together, and they love seeing that we can all be together and all get along. It does give them, I know it gives them a great sense of security.
It's just huge. It speaks volumes for all of you and for both dads.
Yeah.
There's so many people that cannot do that. They just can't. And it's like, I don't care what you say, I'm not doing it. I won't be in the same room as him or her or whatever, because there's so much like,
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, being a teacher, being in the classroom for so many years, I have worked with so many divorced families, all different kinds of situations. And I've seen it firsthand. The parents that refuse to, be in the same room for a parent-teacher conference, that refuse, and it's really contentious all the time. And it's not good. It's not good for anyone, I mean, it's not even good for the teacher. It's hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that it's about me, but I'm just saying, like,
but you are all working together. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm part of the team, and raising your kid with you and helping, all that. I'm part of your village when I'm your kid's teacher. And it's not easy. It's not easy on anyone. And to go back to kind of the dad thing, I have to jump to the other side as well and give Jeff a ton of credit, because, when he always called us, when we were dating, his package, it's his package. He has me and he has the 3 babies that come with me. And at first, like that, yes, that was the package. And now I'm realizing years into it, and now that we have this co-parenting relationship, like, my ex-husband is part of the package. Yeah. Like, Jeff, not only he's marrying, my family, and that comes with an ex-husband too. Yeah. And that I know cannot be easy all the time, because we definitely, while we co-parent well together, it is not without its challenges and obstacles. I can imagine it's very hard to step up to be a dad when you know the other dad is right there too, and he's not stepping up. And I know that Jeff wants what's best for the kids and will step up, no matter what. But I just think, I don't know, it just comes with a complexity to it. It's, you know what I mean? Like when they're your biological children, you're like, yeah, I'm their dad. Like, of course, this is what I do. This is my job. And like, he's in the situation where he's like, yeah, I'm their dad. This is what I do. But there's also this other dad that's not doing it.
Right.
And he would be a great one to interview too, because I would be so interested.
Mike wants to interview him because I agree. It's such a great perspective to have. So from your experience though, when you first started dating, how soon did Jeff meet the kids and what was that like from the beginning?
So we did it completely unconventionally. Like we did probably like all the things that the books and the psychologists say not to do, but I didn't read any of those books.
Well, that's the thing. You don't read the stuff until after you're already in it and go, oh, that was like us, like, oh, maybe we should have done this that way.
Exactly. But you know what we did do? This is what we did do, is we did what felt right to us and what felt right to us for the kids. And my kids met Jeff not as a boyfriend or someone I was dating, but just as a friend, as a person. And I also happened to have a lot of male friends. So it wasn't like weird that they were meeting a male,
Right.
But he met them very early on. I mean, I would say, oh gosh, within like the first month. And we would just do activities together, go to the zoo and go to the park. And Jeff is just so naturally great with kids. And, so they loved him right away. And I have to say, like, as a mother and as a single mother, I think we're often like very, very, very protective of our kids. However, I trusted Jeff so much to do the right thing. And I trusted myself as well. And I knew that if we started dating and these kids were attached to him, I knew that he would do right by the kids. I knew that there's no part of me that worried. I don't want to not introduce them for 6 months because I want to make sure that this is going to be the rest of my life. Like, I got a divorce. I got married thinking it was going to be the rest of my life. Like, there's no guarantees in life, and I cannot protect my kids from everything or from things not going right. And if anything, I thought, you know what, if things don't work out between us, they're going to see how two people handle this really maturely, because they did not get to see that with the divorce. I will say that. It was really early on. We got pretty serious pretty fast. I really did know, like deep in my heart, that he was the one. Like,
yeah.
I had no doubt in my mind that we were going to be together the rest of our lives. And having said that, I also knew in my brain that you never know, like things can happen. But I just, my heart was just in it 100%. And we moved in together. We started staying the night down there a lot, all of us, probably within 6 months. Like it was fast. And we were living there and spending every night down there within 9 months for sure. And I still had my place, but our stuff, we were living out of suitcases out of his place. And it was very unconventional and would not necessarily work for everybody. But I think what helped me was my trust and faith in him as a person, as a human being, and my faith in myself, that I was doing what felt right for the family, not just myself.
When did he start to assume some responsibility for the kids or feel that he should? Do you know what I mean? Like, when did he start to really go, oh, you know what, I'll take the kids here, or I'll watch the kids if you have a meeting, or things like that? When did that start to happen?
That actually kind of leads me. So I'm not going to exactly answer your question, but it really leads me to like one of what I think is the biggest challenges of having our type of blended family is because he doesn't have kids of his own. I don't get to reciprocate that type of help. I don't get to say, oh, I'll take the kids. Like I watch our friends, Lindsay and Brian, and I watch Brian take all the kids and let her do her thing. But I also watch her take all the kids and they share kids. She's taking his kids. He's taking, her daughter. So there's this reciprocation and I can't do that. So I have a hard time asking him for help. Like he's like my last resort, which I don't necessarily think is right, but and this is something I'm currently navigating, is how much help can I ask of him? Even though he's totally their father figure, he's their dad, he's the one that is teaching them to ride their bikes and like all this stuff. So it seems counterintuitive that I have this hang up. But if there's an 8 a.m. soccer game, there's no question I'm doing the 8 a.m. soccer game. If I'm like any type of kid sort of, not sacrifice is the wrong word, but if it's like the hard thing or the thing that nobody wants to do, there's no question I do it. There's definitely been a shift in that where probably in the beginning I was a little more like, could you watch the kids, please?
Yeah.
Can you watch them? Whereas now I'm more like, hey, I have this meeting. Are you going to be home to be with the kids? So, there's definitely a shift in that way where it's not more like you're doing me a favor to watch them, but more like this is our life. You're home. I need to go. However, I try not to do that very often. Like I still have that feeling. And I think that really stems from like, I can't do it for him. I feel like if we're out to dinner and there's been multiple instances, like say we're out to dinner with friends and maybe some people like want to go out for a drink after or whatever, like it's for sure by default that I'm the one that goes home with the kids. Does that make sense?
Yep, totally. It's interesting because Mike and I both have kids and I would still feel guilty with that type of thing as well. Like I remember early on, I would just be like, oh, well, I'll get my parents to help. And he would always be like, that's so weird. Why would you ask your parents to help when I'm right here? Or I've already got, and I'm like, oh, but you don't have Justin and Ashlyn tonight. He's like, so, things like that used to be so hard for me. And now it's easier. It's just, it's like, hey, we're all responsible, but that was really hard for me too. And I could reciprocate, but I can totally understand from your side going, okay, well, he doesn't have children. So he didn't have that responsibility coming into this. So there's that kind of fine line of like, okay, do I ask for help?
And I admit, like, this is my issue.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's totally coming from me. It's not like he's never made me feel that way. And I know, like, every time I've asked him for help, he's totally stepped up. It's not because of anything that he's doing. It's just, and it has been 6 years. It's definitely like a long process. And then we also have the other additional piece sometimes where I'm trying to think of an example, but so my ex-husband's a soccer coach. And so he coaches on Saturdays. And so we often take the kids for him on the weekends or, during the day at least while he has games. And if I have something, that I need to do, like all of a sudden it becomes, if Jeff is the one with the kids, he's really helping my ex-husband.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not me. And that kind of, I think sometimes is a little bit of a harder, can be a hard pill to swallow. Like I'm doing this extra work or not. Of course there are kids, so I know he's happy to be with them. But I was going to say I'm sacrificing my Saturday and maybe what I wanted to do for the ex-husband type thing.
Hey guys, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for taking a chance on us and listening to our podcast. Our goal is for you to not only learn from us, but to learn with us. We've taken a leap on being pretty open about our blended family and how we do life and everything. We want to make sure we bring you all the things you want to hear, always. So please, if you have specific questions like, how do I get along with my ex? Or how do I get along with his ex? Or how do I set some boundaries in place? Or why doesn't my stepson like me? Please email us with your questions. Email them to info@summerfelix.com because we want to answer those questions and we aim to bring you the best guests and conversations to address your most burning issues about everything, always. It's like you said, kind of a hard pill to swallow. Sometimes you're doing something and it's not necessarily for your actual,
exactly.
And you love the kids, so you want to do it for them. But sometimes you're like, I'm actually doing a favor for your ex, or I'm actually the one that's paying for this, doing for this, organizing that or whatever, but they don't know it, but you're like, but I'm doing it. So it's true. And those are, like you said, those are the complexities of these type situations because you are taking on a whole package, but the whole package can sometimes be awkward.
You want to do it for the kids. It's not that you're like, oh, I don't want to do this, but there's just that small piece of it. And like, we're all human, we're human beings. Like, it's sometimes hard not to feel a little bit like, resentful or, that just like, oh, like I'm helping him, he's doing, but it's, like I said, I think the more you continue to just focus on the kids and it's about the kids, the better that is. And Jeff and I, like we so far have navigated this really well together.
You're both really, really mature is what it is too. Even with couples that both have kids, like Mike and I, for example, it can be difficult when you're like, oh, wow, you're really bending over backwards to help your ex. But both having kids, you can also understand like, oh yeah, because I have to do that sometimes. You have to do that sometimes. You know what I mean? There's all these different feelings that you can have and your ego gets bruised. I mean, there's so many different situations, even when you both have children, both have exes, and you're dealing with that. So I can imagine if you're somebody who isn't dealing with an ex, Jeff doesn't have, an ex baby mama that he's dealing with, so it's just that. So have there been conversations about that?
I would say that especially in the beginning of our relationship, this was a conversation that we would have often, basically that I am enabling my ex-husband. And I do. And I'm like consciously and purposefully, I am enabling him because I help him all the time because it's what's best for my kids.
Yeah.
And I think that was hard for Jeff at first. And I still think there are times when it is hard for him now. But I think at first it was a big learning curve for him to really understand that, okay, Kelsey does know what she's doing. Not that I'm right. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying like, because I think at first he'd be like, but you're enabling. He's like trying to get me to see that I was enabling him. And I was like, oh, no. Like, I know I'm enabling him. Like, there's no question that I'm enabling this man, but it's because I'm doing what's absolutely best for my kids. Like, I'm helping him because if I don't take the kids on his time without any reciprocal help from him, but I'm taking them for him. If I don't do that, they're going to be sitting unsupervised in the hot sun on a soccer field for hours and hours and hours on the weekend. And that's not safe. That's not healthy. Like, so I'm choosing to enable my ex-husband for the health and safety of my children. And I think that was hard.
Even Mike and I have had conversations like that, where it's like, he thinks, I'm being too generous, or I might think he's being too, oh, well, you're going out of your way for this or that. But sometimes that's what's so true is we would always say, okay, but at the end of the day, this is why it's for the kids. When it's something different, like if you're being taken advantage of because of a certain situation, I think that's different. But like you said, and we'll often say that, it's really about the kids. A lot of times it's things that you're like, well, I want to do that anyways. Like there were times like I would go out of my way and be like, well, I will do the drop off and pick up, or they want to do this activity. I'll take on the driving and this and that because, secretly was like, well, it's extra time for me. It's really good for them. There's things you just you just suck it up because that's just part of being a parent.
Exactly. And it's what's best for your kids. And there are times too where, like, for example, finances would come into it where, my ex-husband's not paying for much or anything really, and Jeff would say, well, then stop helping him. Like if he doesn't pay, stop helping him. And then that would kind of go back to that thing where I'm like, I can't use my kids as the pawn. And that wasn't Jeff's intent. Jeff's trying to do ultimately, Jeff is very good at saying the big picture, like big picture, if you set this precedent, then, in the future. But I also come from a place where I was married to this man for a really long time. And I kind of like I've navigated what I think works and what doesn't work for the last 10 years, And so like, I'm like, I'm not going to try that. I tried that 8 years ago or whatever, so.
That is so true. And I think, how they say, what's like pick and choose your battles, or
yes.
don't wake the giant, that type of thing. I know those situations where it's just like, there's certain things where you're just like, it's really no big deal to me. If it's something that's like super like, I'm so pissed off because I'm always having to do this and he never does. If it doesn't really bother you that much and it doesn't really affect your self-confidence. Like I've had so much of that where I'm just like, okay, you guys might all be saying these things, but it actually doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't make me feel less about myself or whatever to make things a little easier. Actually, doesn't bother me at all. I'm totally cool with it. And it keeps the kids happy and it keeps peace. And above all, I'm always like, as peaceful as we can have it for our family. And you start to just like, because the thing is that these people, like they're in your life even beyond 18, right? There's like weddings, graduations, all kinds of things. It's like they're going to be in your life forever. So why not just keep it smooth and peaceful and calm? It's like you have family members like that where you're like, okay, I could sit here and get super annoyed because you're ignorant, you're obnoxious, you're this, you're blah, 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 but I only see you once a year. So I'll just have small talk with you and then let it go.
Yeah. Don't you just want to live your whole life like that? Like not even just your relationship with your ex-husband and current husband or future husband. Like it all goes that way. Like it goes that saying, it's one of my favorite sayings, choose joy. Like you can choose to be stressed or upset about something, but like you said, if it actually doesn't really bother you, if you're like okay with it, then choose joy. Like just be okay with it and do it. Like you don't have to, it doesn't have to be because of the principle of it, like, oh, and I used to be that way. I really was. I mean, and I think that's one of like the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful things that my divorce has taught me is that like, yes, there's justice and there's like the principle and all of that. But like when you weigh it out, sometimes, yes, the principle matters. Like do it for the principle of it. Absolutely. Sometimes it matters, but sometimes it's okay to be like, you know what? Like it's okay to let that go. Like I'm fine with it.
I love that you're saying this because I think that there's so many parents that are divorced that literally cause so much grief in their children's lives and for their own lives because they are giving things that don't need to have that much importance, so much importance just because of the quote unquote principle.
Yep.
And it's
exactly.
like, what about just the principle, like you said, choose joy? What about the principle of joy? How about not like, what are you really going to gain? What do you really, really gain by just proving a point? Like sometimes you can just know the truth and that can be enough. You don't have to.
There are very few people that are okay with that.
Right.
Like very few people. And I think too, like also coming out of this journey of divorce and all that, like I really know who I am. Yeah. I know who I am and I love who I am and I'm going to make decisions based on who I am. And like, if Jeff, like in the very beginning would be like, well, play hardball with him, play hardball. And I'm like, no, because that's not me. I would prefer to make everybody happy than to fight someone on the principle of something.
Yep.
And it's not in me. Like I'm nice. Like I'm a nice person. You know what I mean? Like it makes me happy to be nice to people. Even if that person's not nice to me, even if that person takes advantage of me, I'm still going to be nice to that person. Okay. Granted, there are exceptions, but you know what I mean? Like I'm being me. I'm doing me, Summer.
Oh my gosh. And I know that so much about you because I've seen that firsthand, things like that happen. And you are still always just so kind and you have your boundaries, but you're always kind. You're never rude. And I appreciate that so much. Your kids are learning that from you, which is a beautiful thing.
Oh, I hope so. But you know what? It took a lot of years and a divorce to get there.
No, it does. I mean, but that's like, it's kind of the beautiful thing about divorce. If you let it do that for you is that out of the trauma and the heartbreak and the like total stress and figuring out like, what the hell, how am I going to make this work as a single mom and all of those things, you really are pushed to realize what you're made of and what kind of strength you have inside. And suddenly you go from this like powerless feeling to going, oh my gosh, I actually have so much power.
For sure.
How do you guys do discipline? I mean, it's different in every household, but how do you guys do it? Especially like, does Jeff discipline? Is he more of a, like, I'll help guide and then I'll let you, does he let you do most of the disciplining? Like, what does that look like in your house?
I think that's something else. Well, gosh, something else. All of it has been a journey and has changed over time, but that has really changed throughout the course of our relationship too, for two reasons. One, when we started dating, they were so much younger. And as you know, like as your kids grow, the way you discipline them totally changes. And the other reason being is when we were first together, I know Jeff felt very uncomfortable. He wanted me to be the bad cop. and him be the good cop. But I'm like, I don't know how to be the bad cop. So they basically had two good cops. There were two good cops running the show, and that doesn't work. So he felt very uncomfortable, like being the disciplinarian.
Yeah.
And I think now I've definitely seen him step up in that role where he's starting, like it used to be like my rules, my expectations, and then he would like help support that or help enforce that without being like, the major disciplinarian. But now I've seen a shift, which I appreciate. I appreciate it so much. Like now I've seen a shift where he is like, okay, this is not okay with me. This is the rule I want.
But that has to evolve. I mean, it had to evolve into that because you can't just start from that.
No,
I don't think so. I don't think it's a healthy dynamic to just like right at the beginning be like, these are the rules. This is this, and I'm your new dad, or whatever.
Right, exactly. You have to evolve. Here I come, ready or not.
Yeah. What's interesting, because I've seen this, I mean, I've had it within my own family, but I've seen it too when I'm with you guys, is like, I remember too in the beginning, it was more like the kids just like adored Jeff right off the bat, and really like growing that relationship and having that trust in him. It empowers him more to be able to say, okay, now I can, be a little bit more authoritative.
And it was kind of funny to watch the kids. I think when he first started that transition into like, okay, now I'm going to be more of like, set my expectation, like my expectations, not just me like saying that's what mommy said, but him being able to be like, this is what I say. Like, I think at first they were like, wait, what? You'd see them kind of look at him like, like, wait, what's happening? This is totally different. But now it's a lot more common, or, I guess it's the norm now, I should say, where he's actually, it's really funny. Summer today, he sent me this article and I can't remember the name of it, but it was basically about parenting and how kids are like different now. And he sent me this article and he said, here's an article about all the things we're doing wrong.
Oh, we've done that. We've read those
awesome.
Articles. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, it was like, don't do this. I'm like, yep, we do that. So it was pretty funny. But yeah, I think he's comfortable, much more comfortable with that now, which helps me. It's hard to do all by yourself, 3 kids, crazy town over here.
It's super crazy town. I know. I just think it's been so beautiful watching you guys get closer and closer. And I feel like it's like the perfect timing for you to have your family wedding. It's going to be so beautiful. I can't wait
excited.
for it.
Yay.
And it's just like, because I feel like the kids are just at this great age and they appreciate so much, and you guys have come so far and you still have so far to go. We all do. And it's just been so awesome watching you guys. You're like we call each other life friends. We're like forever friends. We do trips together. You guys are just like extended family. You're pretty much my sister.
Oh, you are my sister.
I know. And our kids just love each other. And I don't know, it's just I think it's just so great. And it's so great to have, even though you and I have different challenges in blended family, like there's some things that like I can vent to you about things, you can vent to me about things. And it's like, we still kind of get it because there's some similarities there.
It's all relatable. Even if it's not the same, it's all relatable. So it's nice. And I love that you're doing this podcast because I think that's part of the power of, you just knowing that other people are going through this and hearing what their challenges are. And just when you can relate to things, like that, these big, big things in your life, I just think it's important. It's comforting. It's powerful. So I love that you guys are doing this.
Thank you. We're having fun doing it. What piece of advice would you give to someone, a friend, say a woman, a female friend, somebody in your position who has kids, who's maybe just got divorced and is dating somebody who does not have kids? What advice would you give for her in their relationship together and in, just growing as a family?
Yeah, I would definitely say that communication is key, which I know is kind of cliche and that you could probably say that for every piece of advice. But I think that Jeff and I have, these, like we said, this is a complex relationship and choppy waters. It's not always easy to having an ex-husband deal with, or, all the challenges that normally come with raising kids. You have that plus these kind of added layers of complexity. And I think that Jeff and I have navigated these waters so well because we talk. We talk. If I'm bothered by something, we talk about it. We never let it get to the point where it's like a fight. It's a conversation. And I think that has just been, we respect each other so much. And I have always put him first in the sense that if he says something to the kids or disciplines them, whether I agree with it or not, I have his back. We're a united front. And that comes from our communication.
That is so important. I think also beyond that, and what I've seen you two do is it's the communication, but also really understanding each other. So you're talking, but you're really like seeing it from each other's point of view, which I think is awesome.
It is. Oh, yes. Well, now the parent
duties call. And yeah, that's what we are, aren't we? We're basically Uber for our kids.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, thank you so much. This has been so fun. I can't wait to see you. I know I'm going to see you in like a matter of days. I think you offered a lot of value. So I love you. And thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for letting me be a part of this.
Of course.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to our podcast. You know what they say, if you can't find what you're looking for, then you need to create it. So that's what we did.
Yep, I scoured the internet and looked for the tribe that spoke to me, and I just couldn't find the community that was raw, vulnerable, and really wanting to make a change to the millions of families like ours. So I decided to create it. It took about one conversation for my husband to say, I'm in, and here we are.
But it takes listeners like you to keep it alive.
So please, if you like this, write a review, take a screenshot, share it on your social media. Tell people, it means the world to us.
Remember to email us. We would love to hear from you.
And please share this with someone you love.
And be bold enough to share it with someone that you don't.